Hello, we are live. This is my second live of January, last live of the month. And I'm going to focus the first like 5 minutes or so about things you need to freeze. So thank you guys for joining me. Thank you for joining me early. I appreciate it. Elle with the super chat early. Thank you so much for the super chat. I really, really appreciate it. Elle has been with the channel for a long time. She definitely bought her house. I don't know how long it's been right now, Elle, but I know you've probably been here at least 2 or 3 years, if I'm not mistaken. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. All right. And then we have Elle was definitely here first. She said she has to catch the replay. She has to go, but thank you. When you watch the replay, thanking you first. Thank you for your ongoing support of me and my channel. Willie is here. Hey, Willie. And okay, so we're all in. Y'all are getting locked in. Let's talk about a couple of things. And you can ask me anything. You can ask me about the freeze that I'm going to talk about. Or you can ask me about just real estate questions, financial questions. We're gonna take them all tonight. If you watched my last video, this is still up because this is what I went over in my last video, talking about if you could afford a house. Let's do the math. And the reason why it's $62,000 is because that's the average. I just did Google, y'all. The average salary in the United States. So that's what I use to go off of. All right, so let's go over really quickly. Thank you, Tashia is here. All right, let's go over interest rates for right now. Let's go. Mortgage News Daily, these are average rates. So FHA is 6.45 and conventional loans on average are 7.05. And this is why it's important for you to do two quotes, because FHA is about a half a point or so lower than conventional. So although there's that mortgage insurance, it may make sense for you to still do FHA and pay that mortgage insurance. So you want to go ahead and do, two quotes and make sure that you know which one makes more sense for you, because FHA over the last few years has reduced the mortgage insurance premium, like the amount that you pay each month. So again, you should check, because that the savings and interest rate may make more sense, because as you pay off your loan, that mortgage insurance goes down because it's a percentage of the loan balance. So those are our average rate. They are down from our last live. These mortgage rates are lower than they were before. Not significantly, but they are lower. And just count on, y'all. 2024 might be a little bit of a roller coaster, but I would count for things to be in the sixes, probably mid, maybe sometimes higher, depending on what's going on in the economy. And now we're going to talk about the things to freeze. I'm going to put these here really quickly. So, and thank you guys for joining me. I'm going to acknowledge anybody. Yep, everybody can ask me questions. All right, so after I go over these three things that I want you to freeze, then you can ask me questions. So number one is, because we really want this topic I got kind of from Donald Trump, because when he's like, he freeze everything, everybody got into a chaos in different areas because they didn't know exactly what was going to be frozen. It was very vague. Of course, the courts have stopped the freeze, and then I guess they rescinded the freeze, but he did a freeze on all federal spending, right? So even things like people getting help with daycare, like here in Atlanta, people got letters saying that they would no longer get, I guess, the stipend that comes with daycare. And then they got worried that first 2 days as to what they were going to do or how they were going to make up that amount. So it did impact people even for that short time. But we can't, this might come back around where things, you may be affected by this, but the whole freeze thing, every year I would do in my Facebook group a spending freeze for 1 month. And that month was usually in January. So, how people are doing these dry Januaries and things like that. So I did a spending freeze, and we would do it as a group. Basically, you don't spend any money unless it's like your regular bills and food. You don't spend any money. So let me try to go in order. So number one, everybody should freeze their credit. So my credit has been frozen for a long time. I want to say at least 5 years. And when you freeze your credit, you're freezing it with every credit bureau. So you're freezing it with Equifax, you're freezing it with TransUnion, you're freezing it with Experian. You're going to freeze it so you're not afraid of somebody, stealing your identity, using your credit, that sort of thing. So freeze your credit, especially if you're working on your credit or your credit's really good and you don't, there's so many things going on, fraud and, just people using your credit online or, just stealing your identity in different places. Everybody should have a credit freeze. Freezing your credit is free. So with every bureau, you freeze your credit. And the only way, we call it thawing, if you're ready to use your credit, then you can thaw it so your credit can be checked. Because when you freeze your credit, nobody can check your credit. Nobody can open up accounts in your credit because it'll show it's frozen. So you don't want to do this if you're actively buying a house. So if you're actively buying a house, you probably don't want to freeze it because the mortgage lender is probably going to check your credit a couple of times. But if you're not actively buying a house, if you're working on your credit, if you're already have a house, you don't plan on, applying for any loans anytime soon, go ahead and freeze your credit. But if you get to a situation like I applied for a investment loan, and so I had to thaw the credit with all three credit bureaus, and then I refroze it. Some of them will refreeze it. You can thaw it for like 3 days and they'll freeze it again automatically. Some of them you have to go back in and unfreeze it, but or freeze it again. But everybody should be freezing their credit. Just something you should do financially, you should do. Now, let's get on the spending freeze. So, a lot of people, I've been doing a lot of videos lately on affordability. If you're just joining me, thank you for being here. I am going to take your questions. And I'm going to go in order. So, if you want to put them in, I just want to talk about how you can begin to build wealth with, freezing where you are. So, freezing your spending. So, and this is what you do. In order to get control of your finances, you have to stop spending money, especially on things that you don't necessarily need. So, we're talking about you're not eating out at restaurants, you're not buying clothes, you're not getting your hair done, you're not getting your nails done. You are doing back to the basics, like, shelter, your basic bills. You are not spending any extra money to really get a handle on how much money you have. What are those things, those discretionary things that you're spending money on? And so you can figure out, okay, am I spending too much money and not anything to show for it? And so, for example, I know getting your nails done used to be cheap. Like, I'm kind of old, but I remember we used to get like a manicure and a pedicure for $40. Nowadays, like, it's a basic pedicure, $50 just by itself. And so, there are people that get their nails done probably every 2 weeks or so. That might be $200 that you're spending every single month, but you don't have a college fund for your children, and you don't have, a retirement account for yourself. So those basic things, you want to freeze everything and really evaluate how you're spending your money. I don't want to spend this whole live on the spending freeze. But if you enter my Facebook group and put in spending freeze, I kind of talked about it. I think I still have a video on it of how you need to, if you are having trouble controlling your finances, do a spending freeze. And then the last thing is just focus on generating income, like freeze on one way to generate income and do it for at least 3 months. So, like every quarter. So, if right now, if all you have is your primary employment, so your regular, like your 9 to 5, your 40-hour a week job, I want you to find something you can do that's going to generate more income. Because I get a lot of, well, how can I save for a house when I can't hardly, make ends meet? You either have to reduce your spending, that's that spending freeze, and figuring out where you can cut back, or you have to increase your income, or you have to do both. That's just a reality. I don't think that home prices are coming down significantly. I don't think interest rates are coming down significantly. So somewhere, if it does, that's good, but we shouldn't be planning on that happening. So I want you to really, control what you can control and try to generate some more income for yourself, and do it in like 3-month increments. Because especially if you don't know exactly what you're going to do, you're going to sell an online product, you're going to drive Uber, you're going, like, whatever you're going to do, try to do it for at least 3 months. And for myself, like, YouTube was probably like the fourth thing that I did that really like took off. I was selling school memory boxes on Etsy. I did that for about a year. That was going well, but I figured, okay, I was selling the box for like 65, I think $75 was the highest I sold it, but it cost me probably $30 and like the labor of putting this box together, and I couldn't like scale it up basically. So I was like, okay, I'm making, maybe I was making $500 to $1,000 extra a month, but it was a lot of work for me to do. So I stopped doing Etsy after a while. I started a magazine, like a community magazine. I did that for like a year. Did okay, but again, it was too much time that I was spending on it and not making enough money. I'm trying to think, oh, I was at a whole professional organizing business. I would organize people. And then I did YouTube, and I always had my real estate license. It only cost you like $500 to get your real estate license, but I just added YouTube to it, right? Because social media is how everybody gets to know you now. But it wasn't like YouTube was the first thing that I tried to do to make money. I was making $70,000. I was a business teacher in Atlanta for 14 years before I started like doing YouTube on the side, right? Doing real estate, with my full-time job, because I knew that anybody that's in like a salaried position, especially if you're working for like a government or a school system, they have these salary schedules like, oh, you make a 70,000 this year, you'll make 74,000 next year. Like it kind of, goes up. So I knew what I was going to make probably for the next, 10 years or so. But at least with entrepreneurship or some kind of side hustle, side business is really unlimited. And so when I was able to like replace my $70,000, it was like, okay, I'm making double what I'm making teaching. I might as well, leave. So I just these are my three things that you need to do in order to really try to build wealth. Credit is just you need to work on your credit, but go ahead and freeze it so nobody messes it up in the meantime. Work on your spending, do a spending freeze. If you can start off for just a month, like really trying to get your house in order, do that. If you're looking for a video that I did, search for it on my Facebook group, and I will try to pin it to the top so you guys can find it more easily. And then I want you to focus on income generating ideas, and at least in 3-month increments, because the first thing may not work out. It may work out and then you just keep on doing it, right? But it may take you several tries at something before it actually works. Okay, so everybody, we've got about 113 people on here. I told you what I want you to do in order to start building wealth and start get rich. Like freeze everything so you can get control of your money. Kim Netta, you are such a supporter of the channel. And I don't think I don't think you've ever even asked me questions, I don't think, on lives, but I would say every couple of months, you give me a super thanks or a super chat. And I do really, really appreciate it. Like I know y'all names for sure. So thank you. Thank you, Kim Netta. Thank you, Elle. I really appreciate your support. All right, Tashia. Hey, brought my house in 2023 because of you. Congratulations. And I hope it feels good, you guys, because those of you that were scared. I started my YouTube channel in 2019. Then the pandemic happened, right? And so there was a lot of fear about buying. But looking back, hindsight is 2020. But looking back, that was a time to buy, right? Because a lot of you had low interest rates. The homes were cheaper. And now you have a house that you can afford. And probably that same house, a lot of you probably couldn't afford, or you have to really stretch big time to afford it. So it was, and although it was a scary time, if you were able to get over that fear and go ahead and buy, you're sitting in a better position now than you were before. And I think for those of you that didn't, some of y'all might have been younger, maybe you didn't have a job at the time, whatever it is, you weren't in the position to buy during that time or take advantage of those low rates. It doesn't mean that you wait for something like that to happen again. Over time, real estate is a good investment. So you just go back. If this scares you, I want you to go back about 30 years, right? And see what homes were selling for. And you'll be like, okay, if you're going in for the long term, I say 5 to 7 years minimum that you're going to stay in this house, then you will be fine. All right, let's go. The moderators in the chat, ask me questions. Yes, you can ask me questions about taxes. Yes, you can ask me that. Let's go ahead, moderator. Let's go ahead with the questions because it's like 7:19. And maybe Okay. Ooh. Maybe she can't do it. Okay. G. Suzanne. Hey, I want to consolidate my $20,000 debt, but I'm trying to get a home next year. What are your thoughts? Keep paying down or get the loan to make just one payment? Okay, so I guess my question would be, where is the debt now? So is it just a bunch of credit cards? If it is like different credit cards in different places, a good idea is for you to try to get a credit card at a credit union. Hopefully, you can get a credit card balance up to, or available credit balance up to $20,000. So you can put it all on one card, because often they'll have like, and I've done this before when I did have debt, consolidated everything into a credit union credit card. I believe it was 0% interest for at least 1 year. And I made my goal to pay off that card that year. And when I'm talking about spending freeze, it's because I've done it myself. When my husband and I were saving up for a car, we're both teachers. Well, I used to be a teacher, he's still a teacher. I was like, we're not buying anything. We're not buying ink for our printer. We're not going out to eat. We're not doing anything. I said, print that stuff at work, do stuff. Like, we were just on a spending freeze in order to save up the money, pay off debt. So if it's on a lot of different credit cards, I would say try to find one of those 0% promotions. And even when the 0% expires, it's probably going to be a lower interest rate than you have at your various credit cards. So I do think that is a good idea. Consolidate it all into one card with a promotional rate. So you may have to shop around to see, you want the lowest rate for the longest time, but make it your goal to pay that off pretty quickly. But I think, make sure I answer your question. What are your thoughts? Keep paying down or get the loan? So yes, I would do that, because really you're not taking on new debt. You're just transferring that debt. You're not really, you're taking out new credit, but your debt hasn't changed. You're just transferring that 20,000 from multiple cards to one card. And so your debt to income ratio wouldn't change. It might actually get better. Well, your available credit would be better, and your credit score might be better, because now you have more available credit. Because before you had maybe just 20,000 in available credit, and now you have 40,000. Okay. All right. These are things we're freezing. Next question. What about putting an alert on your credit report? I think you can do this if you've had fraud in the past, but why even worry about that? Just freeze it. So then you don't have to worry about it, because I just don't know. I don't see an advantage of putting an alert versus just freezing your credit. Because when you freeze your credit, nobody can have access to it. So even if you're paying for, unless they give you a lot of things for like credit insurance, those kind of things that help you like protect identity theft insurance, those types of things, you really don't necessarily need that unless they help you clean it up after. But if you freeze your credit, nobody can access your credit at all. So like when I did that loan, the lender had to call me because I forgot my credit was frozen. She's like, "Hey, Shaheedah, you need to unfreeze your credit so we can, we can run, your credit report." And then once she ran it, I just went ahead and froze it again. So yeah, I think freezing is the best way to do it. It's the most secure way of doing it, because alert is telling you something's happened, right? But if you freeze it, nothing can happen. And freezing your credit is free, absolutely free, every credit bureau. All right, good question. Hey, Jackie. I don't understand why we should still freeze our credit while building our credit. Okay, so freezing your credit allows you to protect your credit from anybody trying to do anything fraudulent with your credit. If you are building your credit, and I'm assuming you're trying to apply for credit, but a lot of us already have credit. It's just a matter of paying that debt down, that sort of thing. If you are truly trying to establish credit and you are like opening a new credit card or opening a secured card, once you do that, close your accounts. Your credit report is still open, it's still posting, on-time payments, it's still posting that you don't have debt, but nobody can access your credit in your name. Okay. Because I have a lot of people saying that, oh, there's fraudulent things on my credit report, or, well, if somebody's, has stolen your identity or used your credit card or open accounts in your name, freezing would stop all of that. Jackie. Thank you, Jackie. How many years, how many years can my FHA mortgage insurance before I can remove it? Never. So, and I did this at the last live, but I'm gonna do it again. So everybody gets this very, very clear. If you take out an FHA loan, you will have mortgage insurance. That's an extra payment. So you're going to have your principal, your interest. You're going to be escrowing your taxes and insurance. That's 4 things. And then you're going to have mortgage insurance. And because you're not all FHA loans have it, it kind of helps the lender with risk because most people don't put a lot down on an FHA mortgage. So you're going to have 5 things like you're paying with that payment. Now, mortgage insurance will not come off. You'll pay it for the life of the loan. So let's say that mortgage insurance is 1%. I don't think it's that, but it's like, say it's 1% of the loan balance. So if it's $1,000, what is that? 1% is $10. Okay. It's not 100. Yeah, it's $10. So means you're going to pay $10 every month on that loan. Am I getting that right? 1%, $10. Y'all put that in the chat. Sorry. So you're going to be paying that. I know it's not 10%, it's $100. So yeah, it has to be one. Okay. So you're going to be paying that $10 every month for the life of the loan, right? But because as your mortgage amount, your loan amount decreases, you will pay less over time. Hope that makes sense. So you're paying that percentage of the loan balance. As you start paying off your loan, then you'll pay less. Okay. But you'll pay for the life of the loan with one exception. If you put more than 10% down, you will only pay if you put more than 10% down, you will pay mortgage insurance on FHA for 11 years. So if you're putting down, most people get an FHA loan, put down 3.5% because that's the minimum. But if you are putting 10% or more down, you will pay it for 11 years. So the first 11 years, you'll pay it, and then it'll drop off after the 11th year. Now, with conventional loans, you will pay it. You will not pay it if you put 20% or more down. This is conventional. You will not pay mortgage insurance if you put at least 20% down because that kind of protects the lender because you have 20% equity as you purchase that home. Or when the value of your home, either through payments or the house increasing in value, it comes to 20%. Okay. So my first house was conventional. I was able to get rid of the mortgage insurance. I think I put 5% down conventional. I was able to get rid of my mortgage insurance after 3 years. You call them and say, hey, I think I have 20% equity now through my payments and for my house going up in value. They send an appraiser out. You pay for the appraisal. They send an appraiser out to verify what your house is worth. They compare that to the loan balance. If it's 20%, your next payment, mortgage insurance will be gone. So that's the difference between conventional loans and FHA loans, that mortgage insurance is going to be there. But at the beginning of this live, I put the difference in interest rates. The FHA interest rate was 6.45. The conventional interest rate was 7.05. So, you have to kind of look at that. Okay, how much is the mortgage insurance? How much is the interest rate? Sometimes it's still going to make more sense to go with FHA. So I hope that cleared up. I do have videos on this subject that kind of goes to it in more detail and gives you like numbers and that sort of thing. But that's the answer. Thank you, Matthew. All right, Von Che. Had to run to an appointment, but my question is, I filed taxes with my 1098 that my lender who it was sold to sent me. I didn't know that my original lender who bought my rate down sent me one too. Do I amend? Okay, so let me move this question. All right, so what she's asking is, so when you buy a house, you will get a 1098. You'll get this form, kind of like you get your W-2. The mortgage company will either mail it to you or it'll be on your like mortgage portal. You'll get this so you can use it to file your taxes. Okay. And it basically allows you to deduct your interest for that, any interest that you paid in buying the house for that year. So she's saying that she might have gotten 2 of these forms because usually your mortgage lender will sell your loan after you close. I have a video on that. Not going to go into that right now. But so she's saying basically she has 2 1098s. I'm not an accountant. I'm not a tax person. but I would think you could amend it if it's going to impact your return, because usually it's only going to impact it if you're itemizing your deductions. And I do have a video on how taxes work with, buying your house. And sometimes if the standard deduction, so say that, if you don't itemize like every little thing, then the standard deduction for, and I'm just putting this out there, say the standard deduction for a single person is $15,000 and your itemized deductions are $12,000, then it makes more sense to take the $15,000. And a lot of times, unless you have a lot of itemized deductions, then it's not going to make sense for you to not just take the standard deduction. So sometimes it doesn't make sense for you to even claim your insurance. You'll still give it to your tax preparer, but did they use it to help you? You need to ask. You need to ask whether you use the standard deduction or did they itemize your deductions? That's the question you need to ask, because if they didn't even use it, because when they were comparing the numbers, they just gave you the standard deduction, then you may not need to amend anything. So ask them if they use the standard deduction or if they itemized your deductions. Because that is kind of a misconception that it used to be that mortgage interest was like a big deal with a lot of money, and the standard deduction wasn't that much. But I think during the Trump presidency, he increased the standard deduction, and so it made less sense for you to itemize. Okay, so you just have to ask your tax professional that. Thank you so much. If we have any tax people in the chat, please elaborate. All right. Hey, Nissy girl. When applying to multiple lenders, up to 3, yes, highly recommend. Should I get fully underwritten with all 3, or should I just get fully underwritten with 1? How should I go about doing that while lender shopping? I would not get fully underwritten with all 3. I would just get a pre-approval from all 3. And what she means by getting fully underwritten is that so when you're pre-approved, they look at your they look at your check stubs, your bank statements, they pull your credit. Okay. That's the majority of what they're doing to see if, what you would be approved for. Okay. And they can generate your pre-approval basically just from that information. When you are going fully underwritten, they're going to check your employment. They're going to ask you more questions about your bank statements. They're going to say, "Oh, you spent $500. You cashed at Bobby $500. Who's Bobby? Do you owe him money?" Like, they're going to go in more detail. They're going to ask you for job verification, rental history. They're going to ask you a lot more. And I just don't think that's necessary. I would just wait and do it when you're actually about to make a decision on the home you're going to buy. So if you've done these 3 pre-approvals and they've all given you a loan estimate, asking for that loan estimate. So all 3 lenders gave you a loan estimate. You have the 3 pre-approvals. And then you're shopping for your house. You're like, "Oh, I love this house. I want to make an offer on this one." Then you're going back to those 3 lenders and saying, "Hey, I found a house. Could you update my loan estimate for this house specifically?" And then you're going to compare them. You're going to compare the interest rate. You're going to compare the points. You're going to compare the fees, because there's some things that really don't change from loan estimate to loan estimate. For example, the HOA fees are not going to change. The closing attorney fees or the title company fees are not going to change. The taxes are not going to change. Your insurance quote is not going to change. So you're really checking for your interest rate, any fees that lender is charging you. Those types of things are going to change with lenders, and you'll be able to compare them. Your taxes, all that stuff is not going to change. So you'll be able to compare side by side for that exact house, which makes the most sense. And usually, just tell them up front, "Hey, I'm shopping for lenders. I need a loan estimate," at the very beginning. Because a lot of times when they pull your credit, they can see that other people have pulled your credit too, right? So just be upfront with them. But I wouldn't go through underwriting. If you can avoid it, just go through underwriting with the lender that you choose, to buy your house with. And if you haven't already, get my master class, because I give you sample loan estimates and things like that. All right, Libra, schedule NACA workshop for June 7th in my area. Thank you for the knowledge. Congratulations. So I said the affordability videos that I did this month. One is about NACA I also have a NACA playlist, so you can watch that. But I wonder why it was it booked until June. I wonder why you waited till June. Because if there's an earlier one, take the earlier one so you can get like because sometimes NACA is a process, right? So the earlier you can get in, the better. But congratulations, Libra. All right, Matthew, please, what strategies can I use to pay my mortgage fast instead of 30 years? The easiest way is to just apply more money toward your principal. So to apply, so when you there are mortgage calculators and some of them will have like applying extra money to your principal, so you can set it up so you're going to pay bi-weekly, right? So instead of making one payment every month, you're going to pay two payments a month, and you'll wind up by the end of the year making one extra mortgage payment. But that takes usually about 7 years or so off of your mortgage, just paying it like that. You just have to get used to paying it. So if you're paying $2,000 a month, you're going to pay $1,000 every 2 weeks. And then, you'll wind up, it's 52 weeks in a year. So you'll wind up making an extra payment. So you can do it that way. That's an easy thing. You have to set it up with your mortgage company to make sure they're going to be applying that money, to your mortgage the right way. The other thing you can make extra payments. So kind of play with it. Maybe, if your goal is to pay off your loan by a certain time, you can play with these mortgage calculators, these early payoff calculators to find, okay, how much extra do I need to apply to my principal every month in order to pay this loan off early? Now, there is a what is it called? Velocity banking, where you take a home equity loan and then you take out a home equity loan and then you use the money from the home equity loan to pay off your mortgage early. It's very complicated. I promised a video on that in the month of February. So I will do that video. But the easiest, simplest way is just to apply more money toward your principal amount. So whether that's one extra payment a year, doing that bi-weekly, but you could just do it at any time, or making like small, like I'm going to pay an extra $100 every month. And just if your goal is 15 years, your goal is 20 years, your goal, whatever the goal is, then just be consistent with, putting that money toward that payment, toward the principal. Because, and again, you have to make sure if you just send into your mortgage company, say you're paying $2,000 a month and you send in $4,000, they're going to be like, oh, you paid 2 months in advance, right? They're not going to necessarily apply that extra 2,000 towards your principal. So you want to make sure that you set it up so that extra money is applied to the principal balance of your mortgage. Good question, Matthew. Hey, Libra. Libra said they did have earlier dates. However, I signed another year lease and get myself to get things in order. Okay. Very good. Very good. Just want to make sure because I don't want you to be like, oh, I should have done it earlier, but you have a plan. Love a plan. Hey, Willie. Hello. My wife and I think I answered a question for Willie already. Let's see. Hello. My wife and I are in the underwriting process. Sorry if y'all can't see me. Got to get up. Okay. Hello. My wife and I are in the underwriting process of buying our home. Our mortgage will be about $2,200. For first time buyers, is the price for new homeowners with a 6% rate? I don't understand. I don't think I understand your question. So you're in the underwriting process. You probably are under contract on a house. They told you your mortgage is going to be $2,200. It's a 6% rate. If you're asking if that's a good rate, the only way for you to truly know that, because everybody has different credit scores and different, everything. The only way for you to, and different, I said debt to income ratios, that's important too. The only way to truly know that if you're getting a good rate or if a good deal, you have to quote with somebody else. So if you're feeling like a little nervous, 6% sounds good because on average, it's about 6.5, nationwide, or 6.45 right now. That's FHA. However, the only way you're going to know if that's truly the best you can get is by quoting with somebody else. I think that's what you're asking me. If that's the case, then I would say make sure you quote with somebody else. And you can still do that in underwriting, unless you have a closing. See, the thing is, the reason why I want you to do it up front, like even before you start shopping, is because once you are under contract with a house, they're usually deadlines, right? They're usually that, oh, you're closing in 30 days. And so for a new lender, so say he's, 15 days in his 30-day contract, it's going to be difficult. And he says, oh, this lender can give me 5.5. Not saying they can, but say he finds a lender to give him 5.5. It's going to be difficult for that new lender who's never had your stuff before, never pre-approved you to get you closed in 15 days. So that's why if you're up front and say, okay, I'm getting these 3 quotes, I'm going to choose one of these lenders. You already done your homework up front, and then you make your decision and go through with that one lender. And if something messes up with that lender, you could pretty easily switch lenders if you needed to, because you already have those pre-approvals at those 2 other places. Good question. Hey, 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 Inez. Hi. Cynthia, when do you think mortgage rates will move down to 5 and under? I'm not sure. I don't definitely not soon. I don't think it'll happen by spring. It may not happen this year at all. If it does, it'll be FHA before it'll be conventional. And there's nothing in the predictions from like Mortgage Bankers Association, Zillow, nobody's quoting the 5s for 2025. Nobody's quoting in the 5s. So I wouldn't wait. If you are waiting, right, for rates to get into the 5s, I wouldn't, because it may not happen, right? You need to buy when you are able to buy, you can afford the mortgage at a comfortable price for you and your budget. Go ahead and buy, because rates may go down to 5, but homes may go up in value 7%, 10%, and you're defeating the purpose, right? So I wouldn't wait for rates to get a certain level, but I would say for everybody that's predicting or forecasting mortgage rates, nobody's saying 5 for 2025. All right, good question. Pamela, I purchased my home in October 2016. I will be paying my mortgage off at the end of 2025. So that's 9 years. So you got to put in the chat, Pamela, how you doing that? Is that just payment toward interest? You got another hack that we need to know about? But that is excellent. Congratulations. So yeah, let me know, let everybody know in the chat, how'd you do that, Pamela? All right, thank you. All right, Betty. Hey, say we apply for 3 lenders to get pre-approval and they pull your credit. Is your credit score going to go down each time the lenders pull your credit? No, as long as you do it within 30 days. So I have a video on that as well. It's called Lenders Don't Want You to Know This. So watch that video. It kind of goes over it in detail. But the credit scoring models allow for rate shopping. Okay. So they know that people, when they're making big purchases, like expensive purchases, homes, cars, they're going to rate shop, right? So the credit scoring model made it so that it won't impact your credit if you do 3 car loan pre-approvals, right? It won't, within a short time period. You can't do 1 in January and 1 in June. That is going to be 2 hard credit pulls. But if you do all of them in February, well, it's only 1 hard credit pull. Okay. So you have to, don't be scared. I've done several videos on this topic, because for first time home buyers, they're like, I'm not getting my credit pulled. It's no. So the credit scoring model, Google it if you don't believe me, but the credit scoring model allows for you to you could do 10. I'm gonna say don't do 10, but you can do a lot, right? In February, the February is like 28 days and it won't impact your credit. Don't do 10, because I don't want to everybody don't put that in the chat. But you could definitely do 3 and it not impact your credit. All right, thank you. Wait, let me not say that. I'm not saying it won't impact your credit. It only impact your credit once, not 3 times. All right, let me clarify. But watch that video. Hey, Matthew, you're back. Matthew, is it advisable to sell my old home and go for the new construction home? I just did a new window, new gutters, and new garage and backyard fence. Welcome to home ownership, Matthew. All right. No, I mean, okay, Matthew. All right. So I'm gonna say why I'm not getting a house. So I live in the same house I lived in since 2016. And I have replaced the HVAC since we've lived here. I'm trying to think of the major things. We've replaced the roof since we've lived here. We bought a new stove since we lived here. So those were all pretty expensive. The insurance paid for the roof because, hail damage or something like that. But everything else we've had to pay for. Now, and we replaced the carpet. We put in like LVP. We did do that. We painted the whole house. We did that. But My 2016, the house that we live in now was $225,000. I think, okay, it's 225. We did FHA loan, put 3.5% down. If I was to put the house on the market today, I'd probably put it on the market like 475 to 490 probably. It's a 7-bedroom house. It has 1 bedroom on the main level, 4 on the second level, and 2 on the top level. They don't even make this house anymore. Like, it was a DR Horton home. It was built in 2005. My mortgage is 3.25. My my payment, taxes, insurance, and all that kind of stuff is 1575 or so. I'm not moving because for me to get the same kind of house, not only would I, if somebody's going to sell it to me, say I'm going to pay that 475 and I'm going to pay probably I'm going to double my interest rate, right? It doesn't make sense. Now, I don't know, Matthew, if you're in that same position, but I know if I was trying to sell this house, even though I would make probably $300,000 or so, I would have to buy something similar, right? It's going to be, if I take my $300,000, probably a house like this, in a different area, different whatever, or the same square foot, it doesn't make a lot of sense. So, it doesn't make sense. So I don't know if, like, you have to do your numbers. It doesn't make sense for me. Kind of comfortable. My payment is really, really low. Like, we're at the point where I could just work. My husband could just work. Like, we could be a 1 income household really because our expenses are so low because your mortgage is like your biggest expense. But yeah, so I'm not moving. And we've had expenses as far as like the house and that sort of thing. But if I compare what I could be paying with, oh, okay, I got to spend $1,000 for this. And some of them were just like, I could deal with carpet, but I just wanted to get like the LVP, right? So you have to compare, like, okay, doing a couple of repairs, and you don't always have to hire people for these things. We did, but you could do a lot of stuff on your own. Or should I double like my payment, double everything to get into a new construction house? I wouldn't, but it's really how how your money moves. But I'm trying to invest this different, like, invest this difference. So, because to me, wealth is, I don't consider myself wealthy because I still work. Like, I work a lot. So, to me, wealth is when you're at a point where your money is making money for you and you don't really have to like work every day. So until I'm there, I'm low cost, investing the money that I make, keeping my expenses low, because you never know. YouTube could be like TikTok or something and go away. So I would say no, Matthew. That's a long answer, but you have to run the numbers and see what makes sense. All right, good question, good question. All right, for always, forever, for life. I think I've seen you before as well. I like that name. All right, question. Do you think that now that Trump is trying to cut so many programs that help low income people buy homes, will it affect the first time home buyers assistance? Good question. All right, so the question is, will the executive orders stopping things and that sort of thing, will it impact some of the down payment assistance programs? I'm not sure. I think they definitely will probably start changing the messaging of these programs because he's so against diversity, so against. I mean, it's aggravating to me because, of course, we know I have a whole playlist on Black home ownership and the history of home ownership and racial discrimination in housing. I do it. February's coming up. I'm going to have a whole Black History Month, special lives and that sort of thing. It's a problem, especially for Black people in America. We have a definite history with real estate and owning property and not being allowed to own property and redlining and all that kind of stuff. So it's really aggravating. But okay, but I want y'all to stay focused. If you need down payment assistance, and I reached out to somebody in Georgia just to make sure that it didn't impact them. A lot of those programs are and city funded for the most part. So a lot of the programs that I say that you guys should reach out to and try to get to first, I would say first look at your state and city programs. A lot of them are funded through state and city resources. Okay, so that's number one. They still do have funds. Every once in a while, the federal government may come in and try to, like, after the foreclosure crisis, the federal government did put money into some of those programs in order to like try to get people back on their feet with housing and that sort of thing. So I don't think that the majority of state and city programs will go away. Now, the programs that are like at Bank of America, or Bank of America was saying we're serving more minority communities and that sort of thing, they may start definitely trying to change the messaging of their programs, but still maybe have them. And I don't know for sure because everybody's bowing down. If Trump wants it, they're doing it. I would say they probably may not stop the program, but they may stop how they're marketing some of these programs because as far as first-time home buyers, especially like with diversity, like minorities, we're not the majority of the people using these programs. We just don't have the numbers to do it. But depending on where you live, like I'm in Atlanta. Atlanta's a very diverse place. And so we probably are, as far as minorities using the programs, we're probably using the most of them. But go to Kentucky and Kansas, some more rural areas, Midwest areas, we're not the majority in those places, and they're using those programs. So I would say that's going to stay if it's a major corporation where they're really getting pushed to get rid of some of these. They may change how that program looks, but try to take advantage of what you can take advantage of when you can take advantage of it. Don't wait. But yeah, that's what I have to say about that. If anything changes, I'm gonna do a video about it. So I mean, things are changing fast. So just know that I will do a video about it. All right, thank you. T, self-employed person owes some taxes from last year. Can I still buy a home, or should that be paid off fully before proceeding? Okay. So the way most lenders look at tax debt, so if you owe tax debt from a prior year, they will probably require you to be on a payment plan for that debt before you can get through underwriting and receive final approval. So make sure you're telling them at time of approval that you owe the IRS, because what you don't want to happen typically when they pull your credit, IRS debt does not come up on your credit report because you didn't borrow money necessarily, right? But there's another report they run called a Cavers. Hope I'm saying it right. Cavers report, and that's all your federal debt. So you don't want to. You just bring it up at the very beginning. They're going to require you to be on a payment plan, and that payment plan that monthly amount is going to be in your debt to income ratio. So it doesn't stop you from buying a house, but they are going to count that debt. They won't allow you to buy the house or close on the house by having the IRS debt, because the IRS is kind of over everything. They could come and put a lien on your house, that sort of thing, and the lender wants to make sure they're the first in line. If you foreclose, they're going to take that house. They don't want the IRS to take the house, right? So they want to make sure like you're free of any encumbrances, liens, and that sort of thing, or the risk of it. So they'll make sure you're on a payment plan, and it'll just be treated like any other debt typically. But yeah, that's probably what's going to happen. Good question, T. I like your picture. It's cute. All right, Libra. Charge off creditor sent me a settlement offer to pay in full or monthly payments until it's paid. Is it good to accept the monthly payment offer? Will this hurt my credit score? So if you have something, I guess, in collections, right, something that's charged off, the only benefit, and I have a video called When It Makes Sense to Pay Collections, I think that's the name of it. But look through, I have a credit playlist. It's in that. It won't necessarily help your credit if they already, like when you have a 30-day late, a 60-day late, that's where you get the real credit hits, right? It's not necessarily the charge off. So if you've gotten to the point where they're charging it off, then the credit hit has already, like the credit damage typically has already been done. So when you pay it off or when you make a settlement, it may not improve your credit as much as you think. So I guess my answer would be, number one, if it's stopping you from achieving, like if you can't get a mortgage loan because this is on your credit, then you may think about paying it off. But you need to negotiate. So say you owe them $5,000. Remember, when the original creditor sold it to the collection agency, then they probably bought it for like 10 cents on the dollar or something, or maybe less. They probably bought it for $500. So their profit is anything more than $500. So you want to negotiate and not give them, all the money back or put up a payment plan. And you want to try to negotiate a pay for delete. So if I pay you, so instead of, paying you monthly, say you negotiate $1,500, you're going to save up that $1,500 on your own, not a payment plan, and then say, hey, I got my $1,500. I need you to send me in writing that you're going to remove this from my credit if I pay you this $1,500. So I don't have a video on pay for delete, but you can Google pay for delete. You also can Google, Google pay for delete. That should be enough, but you want to negotiate. I don't think, you need to pay the full amount. And that's for, so if it's removed from your credit, yes, it will help you. It'll help your credit. But I'm not sure it will help it just to be on a payment plan or just to make a payment on it, because the credit damage typically has already been done. Thank you, Libra. All right. Hello, HELOC or mortgage loan to pay off sooner? Brittany, I don't really know your question. To pay off sooner. So a HELOC is a home equity line of credit or a mortgage loan. So a mortgage loan, I mean, you're taking it out for a certain amount of time. So you would, to pay that off sooner, you would, apply it to your principal. I don't understand your question. I think we went back and forth about taking a HELOC out to pay your mortgage off faster, but that's a whole system, because you have to start paying your debt. You have to start using the home equity line of credit to pay your debt. So I'm not going to go into that in this live because it's too much. But if that's your question, just wait for that video. It'll be out in February. All right. Thank you, Brittany. All right. A moderator. This is Matthew's last question. Matthew is dominating the chat. All right. We're at about 7:55. So I want you to put in your questions. We're probably going to take the last 5 questions. If you would take a moment, number 1, please like and subscribe to my channel. If you haven't watched this video, this board is behind me. It's not normally behind me because I did a video recently on how to calculate your debt to income ratio, why you can't afford a house, how they look at your debt. Most lenders look at it. So please, go ahead and watch this video. It's my last video that I came out with. I want to remind you really quickly, because we started with look into freezing your credit. It only could benefit you. It can't hurt you unless you're currently under contract for a house or you're currently applying for your pre-approvals. Don't freeze it. It won't make sense because they're looking at your credit. But you can freeze your credit, just kind of protect your credit, make sure nobody's, doing anything funny with your credit. Spending, go on a spending freeze until you get your money under control. And then I'll put that video in my Facebook group if you haven't already. If you're not already a member, join. And then focus on freeze your efforts for at least 3 months on one specific way to try to generate income, and then do it until either it works or it doesn't work. And then, if it doesn't work, try something else. Don't give up on that first thing. All right, we're going to go with our last 5 questions for the night. Please like and subscribe. Please like this video. Take a moment and like this video. All right, I'm going to take Maurice's question. He did a super chat, and then we'll go. All right, Maurice. Hey, Maurice. I'm going to read it, and then I'm going to move it. Hey, Maurice. Thank you for the super chat. Mrs. Hill, permanent PMI makes me cringe. We are low income, 60K. Well, your average income, because 62,000 is what the average people make. But living in California, that's probably low income. So I digress. I believe we should focus on growth investing for about 3 years and then not be priced out of the market. What do you think? All right. This is what I think, Maurice. Let me make sure I can move your question. He was saying he makes 60K, lives in California. He's going to do it for 3 years. All right. So a lot of things have to go right for you, Maurice, in order for this to work. So number 1, the 3 years of your growth investing, okay, so how much money of that 60,000 would you be investing, right? And the investments have to work. So let's say that you can afford to invest $10,000 into growth investments, because again, let's say the average stock market return is 10% on average. So say you're putting 10,000 of your 60,000 in there. That's $30,000. and say you get 10% every year, you can do that math. So is that going to be enough to purchase a home? Are you still making $60,000 3 years later? I just don't think that's necessarily a plan. And how much will homes be in 2028? We don't know. Because what happens is, if what Trump is saying, he's saying a lot of different things at the same time, but truly, if our economy is going to, be so excellent and grow and that sort of thing, typically when people have more money, things go up because they purchase more things, right? They have more money in their pockets, they purchase more things, and things will increase in value. So let's assume that, just if even if they go up the rate of inflation, right? 2%, 3%. Homes are going to be more expensive in 2020, 2028 than they are now. So although your investment, say inflation is 3%, and then your investments are 10%, you will make more money, but I just don't know if it's worth waiting. I would say you have to do more than growth investing. You have to get your income up. Like, it can't be still $60,000 in 2028. So it could be a good plan for you to um wait, but you're waiting because you're trying to save more money, you're trying to increase your income, because it is going to be difficult for you to buy a home in California making $60,000. So instead of, if I'm doing a 3-year plan, I'm increasing my income. I'm figuring out, okay, how can I make $60,000, $200,000? Like, I'm trying to figure out how can I, in the next 3 years, increase my income significantly. I still would invest, but if you're a long-term investor, then you're thinking 5 years or more, because the stock market may have some down years up. It may not be definitely the 10% every year, because that's on average with the down years. And then I'm going to make sure I'm out of debt. I'm going to consider moving, because California is very expensive. So, making $60,000 in California is not going to give you as far if you can still make that same $60,000 probably in like Texas, or I don't know, Arkansas, Georgia. So I would, 3 years is a good time for you to work on all of these things. If you're not ready to buy now, I just don't want you to put all your eggs in the investing basket only, because usually you should be investing for the long term, which 3 years not really considered long term. It's usually 5 years or more at the minimum. All right. Thank you, Maurice. I hope I helped you a little bit with that question. Thank you for the super chat. I just want you to have a more comprehensive plan, not just one plan. It has to be a debt reduction, income increasing, all of that. Okay. I'm gonna take that one. All right. So that was, I'm not gonna, I won't, I'll count that as one super chat. So 4 more. Hey, Queen, one question. If I try getting into rent to own process, will that mess up my first time home buyer process? I'm not a big fan of rent to own, because most people are doing rent to own because their credit is not where it needs to be, or they don't have the down payment. So I would rather you work on your credit on your own, not while you're still living in the rent to own house. Because with the rent to own house, typically most programs, if you're doing a rent to own program, most programs are still going to pay, you still have to pay market rent for that house. So market rent plus extra, because they're going to require you to put some money aside for your down payment. And you could pretty much do that yourself, but not pay market rent. You could try to find the cheapest, housing you can find. Save that. If you're going to save anyway, start saving that money, work on your credit, because a lot of times you're locked into that house at that price, and there's like penalties if you don't buy it. You could change your mind. If you're like on a 2-year, 3-year plan, you may not want that house in 2 to 3 years. I just like you to have the freedom of, making the choices you want to make. And so I would work on your credit. If a down payment is an issue, look for the down payment programs in your state that you may qualify for. I talked about using NACA as an option. I'm just not a big rent to own program person. So, and I have a video on that. If you just put rent to own, I explain why in more detail, but that's the basics of it. So thank you so much. Oh, Elle already posted the rent to own video. I love it. Love it. All right. Thank you. All right. I heard you say your house is a DR Horton home, but I've been hearing the newer homes aren't the best quality. Would you recommend them now in 2025? Okay. So my home, all right, this is question number 3. Let me work that out. Okay, this question number 3. My home was built in 2005. So that's 20 years ago. Now, just for everybody, within 10 to 20 years, most things in your home should be replaced at least one time. So if you're going into a situation where you're buying a house that is 20 years old, almost everything in that home, all major systems, probably some renovation, should be should be replaced. Like it should be a newer water heater, new everything. At some point, I'm the third owner, but at some point, we've all replaced things where it's not all the original stuff since 2005. So that's one thing. The other thing is, I think they were built much better because I've represented clients on DR Horton Homes, and I always compare my house to what they are getting. Definitely getting less square footage for the money. They're because I think my house is 4,200 square feet, and so like in the $400,000 range, it's probably low 200,000 square feet. So we almost have 2,000 more square feet than they're building now, especially definitely lower bedrooms. The most I think DR Horton build as far as bedrooms is 5. They don't do like these 7 bedrooms anymore. Um, and like even the window seal, like around it, they don't like put casing around the windows or any crown molding and all that kind of stuff. So I think the change did happen around the pandemic because you used to be able to get a DR Horton home and you could pick like your carpet, you could pick your flooring, you could pick your countertops, like you could pick every part of the home and they would build it for you, based on your selections. For most DR Horton homes now, I think, they got this idea during the pandemic when supplies were really low and they kept with it. So basically, they build it how they want to build it. And then you can pick and say, okay, this one is going to have white countertops. This one's going to have, mahogany countertops. And then you just pick which one you want. And then so it's making it less customizable. And they've taken away some of the things that they would normally put in the home, and they started building them faster during the pandemic because housing demand was so high. I think they've slowed down now because the demand has gone down, especially with the higher interest rates and the higher prices. So I think with any new construction, right, you have to get your inspections. You can do 3 new home inspections. I definitely would recommend that you do it at every phase to make sure you're getting a quality product. But I don't think they're a lot different from other builders right now. Like DR Horton's just the largest. I think they're the largest American builder right now, and they're one of the builders. They're not a luxury builder. They're pretty much, a lot of first time home buyers kind of gravitate to that price point, 300,000, 400,000, 500,000. So they're definitely not building them. I feel like an old person. They're not building them like they used to. They're not building them like they used to, but they're definitely not so much worse than like a Meritage or a Lennar. Like they're all using the same kind of products for the most part. So if you are interested in a DR Horton property, just like if you were interested in any new construction property, get those 3 home inspections. And the home inspections you can do it at the slab process, pre-drywall, and then after like your final inspection. And then you make sure that you're really getting that product and really compare what you're getting from DR Horton, what you're getting from other comparable builders. If not, go buy a resale. I'm a big proponent of resales. I know that you're not getting the these great incentive interest rates, but if you kind of look around, you can probably find a resale that's going to pay all of your closing costs at the minimum because they're sitting on equity, right? So like I said, I'm sitting on at least 300,000 or more in equity. I could afford to pay 10,000, 15,000 towards somebody's closing costs, where a lot of people can do that right now. So just compare, because some people get new construction so much in their heads that everything has to be new. They don't even look at some of the resales. But by square footage, in most cases, resales are going to give you more home for your money. But a lot of first-time home buyers are just scared of, that it's older and they like something to be absolutely new. All right, so that's my that's my take on DR Horton. All right, so what is this number? This number 4. I'll take this one and one more. If you have 100% equity in your home, would you chance it on buying a multifamily property? Not all of it. So if you have 100% equity in your home is paid off. So let's make that clear, right? So you don't have any mortgage on your home. And that's 40%. I think I saw a statistic recently. 40% of homes in America don't have a mortgage on them. So a lot of people don't have a mortgage. Their homes are paid off. A big amount of people. And I think, let me see if I have it right here, actually. 40% of people have no mortgage, and the other 60% of homeowners are averaging a mortgage at 3.98, like if you put all the mortgages together. All right, so that's why a lot of people are not selling. But um, you're saying basically your house is paid off. Should you take some of your equity out, either through a home equity loan or home equity line of credit, and invest in a multifamily property? Okay, number one, as long as you have the income to support it, the numbers make sense because you're going to be putting probably 20% down. And I say this because unless you can work this out with your lender, you're not going to be owner occupying the multifamily property. So you're going to have to put like an investment kind of down payment, maybe at the low end 15%, at the regular, it's probably 20%. And so say your multifamily property is $200,000. I'm tired of doing math right now. So it's $200,000. You're going to be putting $40,000 down, 20%. Yeah, $40,000 down. So you would be taking, I don't know how much your house is worth, but you're taking out a $40,000 home equity loan in order to put a down payment on there. And then you have to know, I know if it's a duplex, a triplex, I don't know what it is, but if the math makes sense, right? So you're renting out each of those, you know what the rent is for, you have to pay off your home equity loan, you have to pay off the mortgage. If that all makes sense for you and you're going to cash flow it, I don't see that as being a super big risk, as long as you have the income to, the savings and the income in order to deal with vacancies if somebody's not living there and that sort of thing. I think that could be a good investment for you to make. Good question. All right, last question. All right, 202 people on here right now. Please like and subscribe if you have not already. Thank you, thank you, thank you. All right, which one is better, a HELOC or a home equity loan? All right, so let's talk about the differences, and I'll end in this. I had a rule. It'll be good if I could find it, because I wrote it down. All right, so number one, a home equity line of credit is almost like a credit card, because you're borrowing it against your house. But say that you want a $40,000 home equity line of credit, then they're going to say, okay, they'll give you a credit line, just like a credit card, for $40,000. It just sits there until you use it. And so when you start using it, that's when you start making payments on it. Okay, so home equity line of credit is just like available to you until you use it. You don't have to use the entire thing. So say you use $5,000 of it, then you start making payments on that $5,000 that you're using. Very similar to a credit card, but you're kind of borrowing your own money, right? A home equity loan, say you did that same $40,000, they're going to give you the $40,000. They'll, deposit into your account, give you the $40,000, and immediately, like the next month or so, you'll start making payments on the entire $40,000, whether you're using that money or not. So it really depends on what are you using the money for? Do you need all of the money right now? Or do you need to, just make payments over time, right? So let me look real quick. I'm sorry I'm doing this on live, but I had some notes because I was going to actually do a video on this, whether you should do a home equity loan or a home equity loan or a home equity line of credit. So the general rule of thumb is a home equity line, the home equity line of credit, if you are going to use the money within 3 years and like you're going to pay it off 3 years or less. A home equity loan, you should only take one if you could pay it off within 5 years. So if you're going to pay it off within 3 years, because the interest rates are different as well for the home equity line of credit and the home equity loan. So a good rule of thumb is if you are going to use the money 3 years or less, so say that you had credit card debt and you're going to consolidate it, you're going to use a home equity line of credit to pay it off, and you're going to get it all paid off within 3 years, take out the home equity line of credit. Home equity loan, if you can pay it off in less than 5 years. So if you need it for a little bit longer, but remember, you're going to start making those, make sure you need all the money, right? So if you need the entire $40,000 right now, like when I talked to the other lady about buying the multifamily, she can't do a home equity line of credit necessarily. She's going to need all of that money right now. I guess you could do a home equity line of credit, but I think the interest rate will be higher, so it might not make sense. But, look at the interest rate difference between the two, what you're going to be using the money for. Do you need to make the Are you going to just, want it available to you to use as you need, or are you going to use it all right now and you're willing to make all of those payments right now? All right. I hope that makes sense, you guys. Thank you so much. Have a great night. Like and subscribe. Get my masterclass if you don't have it already. And you'll look for a video soon on home equity line of credit or home equity loan. Thank you so much.